Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're digging into the really surprising power of habits.
Mhm.
We're drawing heavily from James Clear's Atomic Habits, looking at how these automatic behaviors get built.
Right. And more importantly, how tiny, almost invisible changes can actually lead to huge results in your life, real, lasting change.
Exactly. We've looked at a lot of material around this, boiling it down to the core ideas.
Yeah, forget those massive, often overwhelming New Year's resolutions.
Right.
We want to pull out the practical stuff, the strategies you can actually use, like today, how to build good habits, how to break bad ones.
And hopefully, without making it sound like you need a psychology degree to get it.
Exactly.
And for you, our listener, always looking to learn, this is really built for you. We've tried to take these big ideas and turn them into things you can actually do.
So you can understand your own patterns better.
Yeah, and start making real progress towards what you want, but, step by step, manageable steps.
Okay, so the book, it lays out these super effective strategies. But where did Clear himself, where did his understanding come from? It wasn't just theory, was it?
No, not at all. And that's what makes it compelling, I think. It's really grounded in his own life, his own experiences.
Right, he had that serious injury in high school. That sounds like it was a huge turning point.
Yeah, the book describes it. Sounds pretty harrowing. Baseball bat to the face, body going into shock, airlifted, a long recovery. It wasn't just an academic interest for him.
Definitely not. And that whole difficult process of just rebuilding himself physically, plus trying to make the baseball team at Denison University.
Especially after, I think, he didn't even make his high school team.
Exactly. He started, like, at the very bottom of the roster freshman year. Not exactly Mr. Natural Talent.
But that's where it gets interesting, right? Instead of getting down about it.
He focused. He really zeroed in on the small stuff, the fundamentals.
Things you might not even think about as training, like keeping his room tidy, getting consistent sleep, focusing on study habits.
Yes. And those little things, they added up. The cumulative effect was, well, pretty impressive. He actually got straight A's his first year.
Wow.
It wasn't some sudden transformation. It was just consistency. Small wins building momentum. It shows how focusing on the process, even the boring bits, pays off.
And that whole personal journey, it didn't just stop with sports and grades, did it? It flowed into his writing, too.
Absolutely. He started his website, jamesclear.com, back in 2012, sort of like a public journal, sharing what he was learning about habits.
And it wasn't an overnight thing, either.
No, it was the habit of writing itself, consistently publishing articles twice a week, I think, that slowly built an audience.
Slowly at first, maybe, but it became huge. Hundreds of thousands on his email list, millions visiting the site monthly by the time the book launched in 2018.
It's a perfect example of the compounding effect he talks about. That consistent habit of creating and sharing, it built something massive over time.
There's that quote he uses. To write a great book, you must first become the book.
Yeah, from Naval Ravikant. It fits perfectly. Clear lived these principles. Recovery, fitness, writing, building his business. It all came from applying these small habit ideas.
Which gives the whole thing a lot of credibility, doesn't it? It feels practical because he actually did it.
Exactly.
Okay, so these tiny habits, these atomic habits, they can seem almost insignificant at the time. Like, what difference does flossing one tooth really make?
Right, but the core argument, and it's powerful, is that their impact isn't linear. It grows exponentially. It compounds.
This is where he brings in that British cycling story with Dave Brailsford, the aggregation of marginal gains.
Yeah, a fantastic example. Before Brailsford took over in 2003, British cycling was, well, pretty mediocre.
Underwhelming is putting it mildly. The book mentions a top bike maker refused to sell them bikes because they thought it would hurt their brand.
That's how bad it was. But Brailsford came in with this almost obsessive focus. Find every single tiny thing involved in cycling and improve it by just 1%.
1%.
His thinking was, if you improve everything by that tiny margin, the combined effect will be huge. It wasn't just about slightly better bikes. It was about eliminating tiny inefficiencies everywhere.
And it went way beyond the bikes, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. Everything. Rider clothing aerodynamics, bike seat ergonomics, the massage gel they used for recovery, testing different pillows for optimal sleep. Even teaching riders the best way to wash their hands to avoid illness. Hundreds of tiny details.
Seems almost crazy detailed.
But look at the results. Suddenly, they're dominating. Gold medals galore at the 2008 and 2012 Olympics, winning the Tour de France multiple times. It was a stunning turnaround.
And it all came back to those tiny 1% improvements adding up.
Exactly. Clear does the math.
Yeah.
Get 1% better each day for a year, and you end up 37 times better. That's compounding.
It's an amazing visual. But It works the other way too, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's a double-edged sword. Those tiny bad habits, those 1% errors in judgment, the little compromises, they also compound.
That extra cookie, skipping one workout, hitting snooze, feels like nothing in the moment.
Right. But do it day after day, and those small negative choices build up, leading you down a path you didn't intend to take. Significant decline over time.
It's the repetition, that slow drift.
That's it. And this leads to a really crucial concept he calls the plateau of latent potential.
Okay, what's that about?
It explains why we often feel stuck, like we're putting in effort but seeing no results. It's like, oh, like heating an ice cube.
Right, the temperature goes up from, say, 25 degrees, 26, 27,
Mm-hmm.
but nothing looks different.
Exactly. You see no change until, bam, it hits 32 degrees, the melting point, and suddenly you see a transformation.
But all that work, all that energy input before 32 degrees was essential. It wasn't wasted.
Precisely. People see the melting and call it overnight success, but they miss the years of effort that built up the potential. Like tectonic plates building pressure for years before an earthquake. Change is often invisible until it hits a critical threshold.
That's a really helpful way to think about it, especially when you feel discouraged because you're not seeing results yet. Keep going, you might be on the plateau.
Understanding that plateau is key to sticking with things long enough to break through.
Okay, so tiny gains, compounding, the plateau.
Mhm.
We get the power of small. But then the book takes a bit of a turn, doesn't it? It challenges how we usually think about achieving things, specifically our obsession with goals.
Yes, absolutely. It makes a really strong argument for focusing on systems rather than just goals.
Now, that might sound wrong to some people. We're always told, set smart goals, focus on the target. So what's the problem with goals, according to Clear?
Well, he points out a few key problems. First, achieving a goal is often just a temporary change. You hit your target weight, great. But if you haven't changed the system, your daily eating and exercise habits, the weight likely comes back.
Okay, the goal is the outcome. The system is the process that leads to the outcome.
Exactly. Fix the inputs, and the outputs take care of themselves over time. Second, goals can restrict your happiness. You tell yourself, I'll be happy when I achieve X.
The destination addiction.
Right. A systems approach lets you find satisfaction in the process itself, in just showing up and doing the work each day. You enjoy the journey.
That makes sense. And the third problem, something about long-term progress.
Yeah, goals can sometimes conflict with long-term progress. Think about the marathon runner example again. They train intensely, run the race, and then what?
Often they stop running because the goal is gone.
Exactly. The goal provided the motivation, but there was no underlying system for continued running. A system is about continuous improvement. It's a lifestyle, not a finish line. Winners and losers often have the same goals. It's the systems that differentiate them.
Okay, so if goal setting alone isn't the answer, what's the alternative focus?
This is, I think, one of the most powerful ideas in the book, identity-based habits.
Identity-based. So shifting from what you want to achieve to who you want to become.
Precisely. The focus moves from the outcome, losing weight, to the identity, being a healthy person. You build habits that reinforce the type of person you want to be.
Can you give an example? How does that work practically?
He tells the story of Brian Clark, who struggled for years to stop biting his nails. Willpower didn't work.
Yeah, nail biting's a tough one.
The shift happened when he decided to start identifying as someone who takes care of their appearance. His first step, he asked his wife to book him a manicure.
So getting the manicure wasn't just about nice nails.
It was an act that reinforced his new desired identity. Suddenly, biting his nails felt inconsistent with being the kind of person who gets manicures and values well-kept hands. It tapped into a deeper motivation.
And the idea is that every action we take is like a vote for the type of person we want to be.
I love that analogy. It's brilliant. Every time you choose the salad, you cast a vote for being a healthy person. Every time you write a page, you cast a vote for being a writer. Every time you practice Spanish, you vote for being a Spanish speaker.
And enough votes shift your self-image.
Exactly. The habits become less about achieving something external and more about embodying who you are. The goal isn't to read a book. The goal is to become a reader.
That feels much more sustainable. It's not just about willpower anymore. It's about alignment with your self-concept.
It's a profound shift.
Okay, so we've got the power of small habits, the importance of systems over goals, and focusing on identity. Now let's get really practical. How do we actually build the good ones and break the bad ones?
This is where Clear introduces the 4 laws of behavior change. It's a simple framework, but really effective based on how habits actually form in the brain.
That four-step loop, right? Cue, craving, response, reward.
Exactly. And each law gives us a lever to pull for each step. The first law is make it obvious. This deals with the cue.
The trigger, the thing that kicks off the habit. What's key here?
Yeah, cues are everywhere. There's signals in our environment, a time of day, a location, an emotional state, the preceding action that our brain links to a reward.
And often we're not even consciously aware of them, are we?
Very often, no. Our brain is constantly scanning, subconsciously looking for these predictors of reward. Over time, the cue automatically triggers the craving and the habit, almost without thinking. That's efficient, but makes bad habits hard to stop.
So step one is just noticing, becoming aware of the cues currently running your life.
Exactly. Awareness is fundamental. Clear suggests using a habits scorecard. Just list your daily habits, brushing teeth, checking phone, making coffee, watching TV, then label each as positive, plus, negative, or neutral.
The act of writing it down forces you to see the patterns.
Yes, it brings the unconscious into the conscious. He also mentions that pointing and calling technique from Japanese railways, physically pointing and naming the signal or task, it forces awareness.
Sounds simple, but it makes sense. It breaks the automaticity.
Once you're aware of the cues, you can start designing your environment. Make the cues for good habits obvious and the cues for bad habits invisible.
Like putting your running shoes right by the bed.
Perfect example. Or putting fruit in a bowl on the counter instead of hidden in the fridge drawer. And hiding the cookies in the back of the pantry. Out of sight, out of mind. Or at least less likely to trigger the cue.
Makes sense. And then there's implementation intentions. That sounds formal.
It just means making a specific plan. I will behavior at time and location.
So not just, I'll exercise more, but I will do 20 push-ups at 7 a.m. in my living room.
Precisely. Studies show this dramatically increases follow-through. It removes the ambiguity and decision fatigue in the moment. Your brain knows exactly what to do, when, and where.
And habit stacking. How does that fit in?
That's linking a new habit you want to build onto an existing habit you already do automatically. The formula is, after current habit, I will new habit.
Using the completion of one habit as the cue for the next one.
Exactly. After I pour my morning coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute. After I take off my work shoes, I will change into my workout clothes. You leverage the momentum of the existing habit.
Like a domino effect for good habits. The book mentions the Diderot effect here, too. Buying one new thing makes you want other related things.
Right. It shows how one cue can trigger a cascade. Habit stacking intentionally creates that first link. You start small, maybe. After I brush my teeth, I will floss one tooth. It builds from there.
And this all ties back to environment design, making cues obvious or invisible. Like the hospital cafeteria example.
Yeah, putting water bottles at eye level everywhere and sugary drinks hidden away. They massively shifted what people drank just by changing the visual cues and convenience. No big announcement, just smart design.
Or the fly sticker in the urinals at Schiphol Airport. Genius. A tiny visual cue that dramatically improved aim and reduced cleaning costs.
It's all about making the desired action the most obvious and easy one. Even having one space, one use helps, like only working at your desk, not on the couch or in bed. It strengthens the cue behavior link for that location.
Okay, law 1, make it obvious. Got it. What's law 2?
Law 2, make it attractive. This tackles the craving part of the loop.
Why is attractiveness so important?
Because it's the anticipation of reward that drives us, more than the reward itself sometimes. The more attractive, the more appealing a habit seems, the stronger the craving, and the more likely we are to do it. This involves dopamine.
The motivation molecule. It spikes not just when we get a reward, but when we expect one.
Exactly. Highly addictive behaviors, social media scrolling, junk food, gambling, they're masters at triggering dopamine release through anticipation. So to build good habits, we need to make them more attractive.
How do we do that? Especially for habits that seem inherently unattractive, like maybe exercising early.
One great strategy is temptation bundling.
Okay, what's that?
You pair an action you want to do with an action you need to do.
Like the example of the engineering student Ronan Byrne, who hacked his exercise bike so it would only play Netflix if he was cycling at a certain speed.
Exactly. He bundled the want, watching Netflix, with the need, exercising. It made the exercise bike much more attractive. You could bundle listening to your favorite podcast only while you go for a walk, or getting a pedicure while you catch up on work emails.
So you link something you crave with the habit you're trying to build. Clever. What else makes habits attractive?
Social norms. We are heavily influenced by the groups we belong to. We tend to imitate the habits of three groups in particular: the close, family, friends; the many, the tribe, the culture; and the powerful, those with status we admire.
So if your friends are all fitness buffs, you're more likely to find exercise attractive.
Definitely. Peer pressure works both ways. Joining a group where your desired behavior is the normal behavior makes it much easier and more attractive to adopt that habit yourself. You want to fit in.
The Ash conformity experiments showed that, didn't they? People conforming to a group's wrong answer just to belong.
Yeah, it's a powerful drive. So join a running club, a book group, a language class. Immerse yourself in a culture where the habit you want is praised and common.
Okay, that makes sense for building good habits. What about making bad habits unattractive? The inverse.
Right. You need to reframe how you think about them. Highlight the benefits of avoiding the bad habit. Focus on the downsides.
Like Alan Carr's method for quitting smoking. Doesn't focus on the struggle, but reframe smoking as something pointless and harmful, making it seem less desirable.
Exactly. You shift your perspective. Instead of thinking, I'm depriving myself, you think, I'm freeing myself from. You make the downsides more salient than any perceived upside.
And realize that the craving is often for a change in feeling, not the habit itself.
Crucial point. The craving for a cigarette might really be a craving to relieve stress. The craving for social media might be a craving to avoid boredom or feel connected. If you understand the underlying motive, you can find a better, more attractive way to address that feeling.
Making the old bad habit less appealing by comparison. Okay, law 1, obvious. Law 2, attractive. What's law 3?
Law 3, make it easy. This focuses on the response, the actual habit itself.
And the core idea here is
Reduce friction. Humans are fundamentally wired for the path of least resistance. We naturally gravitate towards options that require the least effort.
law of least effort.
Yes. So if you want to build a habit, you need to make it as easy as possible to do, especially in the beginning. It's not about perfection, it's about repetition, getting your reps in.
This connects back to that 21-day rule being a myth, right? It's not about time, it's about frequency.
Yeah.
Crossing the habit line often enough for it to become automatic.
Exactly. The more you do it, the easier it gets, neurologically speaking. So how do you make it easy? Prime your environment.
Like laying out workout clothes the night before. We mentioned that for cues, but it also reduces friction for the response.
Yes, it removes steps, packing your healthy lunch the night before, setting out your book and bookmark on your pillow, anything that reduces the steps between you and the desired action.
And the 2-minute rule. That seems really powerful here.
Hugely powerful. Scale down any new habit so it takes less than 2 minutes to do.
So read before bed becomes read 1 page.
Yeah.
Do yoga becomes take out my yoga mat. Run 3 miles becomes put on my running shoes.
Precisely. Anyone can read 1 page or put on their shoes. It sounds trivial, but it's about mastering the art of showing up. It gets you started, overcomes inertia, and reinforces the identity. I'm the type of person who reads every night, even if it's just 1 page initially.
You can build on it later, but the crucial part is starting, making it easy to start.
Yes. Once you've started, it's much easier to continue. These tiny choices happen at what Clear calls decisive moments, small hinges that swing big doors.
Like choosing to walk past the donuts or grab an apple. Small choice, big long-term difference if repeated.
Exactly. Making the good choice easy in those moments is key.
Okay, so make good habits easy. The inverse for bad habits must be make it difficult.
Right. Increase the friction for things you want to stop doing.
Like deleting social media apps from your phone or leaving your credit card at home if you tend to impulse buy.
Perfect examples. Unplugging the TV after use and putting the remote in another room. Using software to block distracting websites during work hours. These are commitment devices.
Actions you take now to lock in better behavior later. Like Victor Hugo supposedly having his servant hide his clothes so he couldn't go outside and had to write.
A classic example. Or Ritty inventing the cash register to make it harder for his employees to steal. You're designing your environment to make the bad habit inconvenient.
Technology can automate good habits too, right? Like setting up automatic savings transfers.
Yes, automation is the ultimate form of making it easy. Once you set it up, the habit happens without effort. Bill pay, saving, even meal delivery services can automate good choices.
Okay. Obvious, attractive, easy. That leaves law 4.
Law 4, make it satisfying. This closes the loop by focusing on the reward.
Why is satisfaction the key here?
Because our brains are wired to repeat experiences that feel good. If a behavior is followed by satisfaction, we're implicitly told that was good, do it again.
Like the safeguard soap example in Pakistan. People knew they should wash hands, But they didn't do it consistently until the soap smelled nice and lathered well. It made the act itself more pleasant.
Exactly. Or flavored chewing gum. Or minty toothpaste. Those sensory rewards made the habit stick. The problem is, our brains evolved to prioritize immediate rewards over delayed ones.
Right. The reward for eating cake is immediate. The reward for saving money or exercising is often way down the road.
Which leads to the cardinal rule of behavior change. What is immediately rewarded gets repeated. What is immediately punished gets avoided.
So, for good habits with delayed benefits, we need to find a way to inject some immediate satisfaction.
Yes. How? Habit tracking is a great way.
Checking off that box in your calendar, seeing the streak grow.
It feels good. It's a small, immediate hit of satisfaction. It proves you're making progress. That's why the don't break the chain method is so popular. And if you do miss a day.
The rule is never miss twice.
Exactly. Get back on track immediately. One missed day is an anomaly. Two is the start of a new unwanted habit. Tracking provides that visual proof and immediate reinforcement.
Okay, so immediate reward for good habits. What about the inverse for bad habits? Make them immediately unsatisfying.
Correct. How? Accountability partners work well.
Telling someone your goal and having them check in.
Yes. The potential embarrassment or cost of having to admit you slipped up makes the bad habit less appealing in the moment. It adds an immediate social cost.
And habit contracts. That sounds even more serious.
It is. You formally state the habit you're changing and the specific, often financial, penalty if you fail. You might sign it with an accountability partner or use a service like stickneyk.com.
Like Brian Harris, who made a contract with his wife and trainer, promising serious consequences if he didn't hit his weight goal.
It makes the future consequence of the bad habit immediate and painful, counteracting the immediate pleasure the bad habit might offer.
Okay, those 4 laws make it obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying, provide a really solid framework for building and breaking habits. But the book goes further into advanced tactics, right, for moving from good to great.
Yeah, it touches on refining your approach. For instance, the role of genetics and talent.
Ah, nature versus nurture. What's the take?
Genes matter. They predispose us to certain strengths, but they don't determine destiny. The key is to play a game where your genes give you an edge. Pick the right pond.
Like Michael Phelps's body being almost perfectly built for swimming versus Hicham El Guerrouj's physique being ideal for running. They excel by choosing the right sport for their natural abilities.
Exactly. Find areas where you get better returns on your effort because they align with your natural inclinations and skills. If you can't find a broad field, specialize. Create your niche.
Makes sense. Play to your strengths. What about staying motivated long term, especially when habits get boring?
That's where the Goldilocks rule comes in. We're most motivated when working on tasks that are right on the edge of our current abilities. Not too hard, not too easy, but just right.
Just manageable difficulty that keeps you engaged and can lead to that flow state.
Yes, you need to constantly find that sweet spot of challenge to stay engaged. Boredom is a major threat to habits.
But there's a downside to habits becoming too automatic, isn't there?
There is. You can become less sensitive to feedback. You go on autopilot and might stop actively looking for ways to improve. Mastery requires habit plus deliberate practice.
So, how do we avoid complacency?
Reflection and review are crucial. Regularly stepping back to assess your progress, analyze what's working and what's not.
Like the Lakers' career best effort program, tracking key stats, or keeping a decision journal, or doing an annual review.
All great examples. These systems force you to stay conscious and make deliberate adjustments, preventing stagnation.
And finally, there's the idea of identity flexibility, not getting too attached to one version of yourself.
Right. As life changes, you need to be able to adapt your identity. Holding on to an outdated identity can prevent you from making necessary changes or pursuing new opportunities. Be willing to redefine yourself.
So the ultimate goal isn't just one habit, but building this whole system of small improvements, maybe 1,001% gains, that carries you forward.
That's the idea. The weight of the system starts working for you.
And the book ends with some thoughts on motivation and happiness. Something about awareness.
Yeah, awareness precedes desire. You can't crave what you don't know exists. And then, maybe counterintuitively, happiness isn't necessarily achieving all your desires, but perhaps the absence of desire. Contentment with the present.
Wow, that's a deep thought to end on. Okay, so for you listening, The big takeaway here from Atomic Habits really is that massive change doesn't come from massive action, usually.
No, it comes from small, consistent, everyday habits. They are far more powerful than relying on bursts of motivation. Understanding those four laws gives you the toolkit.
Make the good habits obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying.
And make the bad habits invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. You can literally design your environment and your routines to nudge you towards who you want to become.
So here's something to think about. What's just one tiny habit, maybe based on the 2-minute rule, that you could start today or tomorrow?
Yeah, think about that. How could that one tiny change, if you stick with it, start compounding and shaping the person you ultimately become?
Definitely worth reflecting on your own habits after this. Maybe even pick up the book itself for more detail. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.